Know yourself, know yourself, know yourself, know yourself, know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. Yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. Know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. Okay, that's from today's reading. We're going to read chapter 3, and this is section 5, and it's called Beyond Perception. Here we go. I have said that the abilities you possess are only shadows of your real strength, and that perception, which is inherently judgmental, was introduced only after the separation. No one has been sure of anything since. I have also made it clear that the resurrection was the means for the return to knowledge, which was accomplished by the union of my will with the Father's. We can now establish a distinction that will clarify some of our subsequent statements. Since the separation, the words, quote, create, unquote, and, quote, make, unquote, have become confused. When you make something, you do so out of a specific sense of lack or need. Anything made for a specific purpose has no true generalizability. When you make something to fill a perceived lack, you are tacitly implying that you believe in separation. The ego has invented many ingenious thought systems for this purpose. None of them is creative. Inventiveness is wasted effort, even in its most ingenious form. The highly specific nature of invention is not worthy of the abstract creativity of God's creations. Knowing, as we have already observed, does not lead to doing. The confusion between your real creation and what you have made of yourself is so profound that it has become literally impossible for you to know anything. Knowledge is always stable, and it is quite evident that you are not. Nevertheless, you are perfectly stable as God created you. In this sense, when your behavior is unstable, you are disagreeing with God's idea of your creation. You could do this if you choose, but you would hardly want to do it if you were in your right mind. The fundamental question you continually ask yourself cannot properly be directed to yourself at all. You keep asking what it is you are. This implies that the answer is not only one you know, but is also one that is up to you to supply. Yet you cannot perceive yourself correctly. You have no image to be perceived. The word image is always perception related and not a part of knowledge. Images are symbolic and stand for something else. The idea of, quote, changing your image, unquote, recognizes the power of perception, but also implies that there is nothing stable to know. Knowing is not open to interpretation. You may try to, quote, interpret, unquote, meaning, but this is always open to error because it refers to the perception of meaning. Such incongruities are the result of attempts to regard yourself as separated and unseparated at the same time. It is impossible to make so fundamental a confusion without increasing your overall confusion still further. Your mind may have become very ingenious, but as always happens when method and content are separated, it is utilized in a futile attempt to escape from an inescapable impasse. Ingenuity is totally divorced from knowledge because knowledge does not require ingenuity. Ingenious thinking is not the truth that shall set you free, but you are free of the need to engage in it when you are willing to let it go. Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles. But the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness, because those who have been forgiven have everything. Once forgiveness has been accepted, prayer in the usual sense becomes utterly meaningless. The prayer for forgiveness is nothing more than a request that you may be able to recognize what you already have. In electing perception instead of knowledge, you placed yourself in a position where you could resemble your Father only by perceiving miraculously. You have lost the knowledge that you yourself are a miracle of God. Creation is your source and your only real function. The statement, quote, God created man in his own image and likeness, unquote, needs reinterpretation. Quote, image, unquote, can be understood as, quote, thought, unquote, and, quote, likeness, unquote, as, quote, of a like quality, unquote. God did create spirit in his own thought and of a quality like to his own. There is nothing else. Perception, on the other hand, is impossible without a belief in, quote, more, unquote, and, quote, less, unquote. At every level, it involves selectivity. Perception is a continual process of accepting and rejecting, organizing and reorganizing, shifting and changing. Evaluation is an essential part of perception because judgments are necessary in order to select. What happens to perceptions if there are no judgments and nothing but perfect equality? Perception becomes impossible. Truth can only be known. All of it is equally true, and knowing any part of it is to know all of it. Only perception involves partial awareness. Knowledge transcends the laws governing perception because partial knowledge is impossible. It is all one and has no separate parts. You who are really one with it need but know yourself, and your knowledge is complete. To know God's miracle is to know him. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Correct perception of your brother is necessary because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. Spirit knows God completely. That is its miraculous power. The fact that each one has this power completely is a condition entirely alien to the world's thinking. The world believes that if anyone has everything, there is nothing left. But God's miracles are as total as his thoughts because they are his thoughts. As long as perception lasts, prayer has a place. Since perception rests on lack, those who perceive have not totally accepted the atonement and given themselves over to truth. Perception is based on a separated state, so that anyone who perceives at all needs healing. Communion, not prayer, is the natural state of those who know. God and his miracle are inseparable. How beautiful indeed are the thoughts of God who live in his light. Your worth is beyond perception because it is beyond doubt. Do not perceive yourself in different lights. Know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. Know yourself in the one light where the miracle that is you is perfectly clear. Okay, so Jesus is here. This chapter is called the innocent perception. The innocent perception would be knowledge. So Jesus has been distinguishing between knowledge and perception. Knowledge essentially is Jesus' word for God, for the truth, for God, for the state, for our natural state, which is really beyond this world and beyond perception, beyond the world of perception. Perception is where we are now. We're in the world of perception, where we vacillate between, we as he says here, we keep asking what it is we are. Who are we, or what are we? but we don't have an answer. There is no image to be perceived of us. Images, and this world is full of images, which are really symbols. And Jesus reinterprets that line from Genesis, which is God created man in his own image and likeness. Really what he's getting at is as the creation of God, again, Jesus is using language to take us beyond language. And he's basically upending almost every word that's used in the Bible, and every biblical and religious concept, especially Christian concept. Creation for Jesus is something different from what is meant by the Bible, that God created man. According to Jesus here in the chorus, God did not create man in the sense of creating a body. God did not create the world, and God did not create bodies. God is not, simply a bigger human, a divine person. But rather, God, when Jesus speaks of creation, Jesus is talking about God as love can only create love, and love is beyond the body, beyond the world. Love is a state of being in which there is no judgment, there's no more perception, there is only the awareness of everything. And he points out that according to the ego, the way we think, if we have everything, then there's nothing left. Whereas the truth is that if once you have everything, there's no ego, but there's still everything, except the ego, except the separation. There's only the non-separation. Anyone who perceives it all needs healing. We all need healing. That's why it's. Let me mention someone on Facebook just declared themselves Jesus Christ. Now, it's not. I don't think it's a mistake, according to the Course, to say that I am in Christ consciousness, that I and that I strive for Christ consciousness. But to say that you are you're all the way there, now there might be truth to that, and perhaps there are people that are really stable in that perception, the miraculous perception. We're all moving there, in that direction. But for someone to claim to be fully enlightened, or to be fully, again, there may be some like that, the true avatars, but for most of us, we are in need of healing, because we still are perceiving differences and separation. And if our minds were completely healed, we would be back in the oneness of God. No judgment whatsoever. And so to perceive miraculously, according to this, is to release the judgment. as we can, and here there's a great line, forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Okay, forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. So when we release the judgment, that's the same idea of we don't see separation. Rather, we let go of whatever is in the way of seeing the truth as it is. And even, we're still not all the way there. We're still in the world of perception, but we're moving closer. We're undoing the ego, and at some point we will have the experience of that once again, of being one with God once again. Prayer is a way of asking for something. It is the medium of miracles, but the only meaningful prayer is for forgiveness. So, seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you. Once you realize that forgiveness, God does not judge, therefore God does not forgive. Forgiveness is not even necessary. There's nothing to pray for. You realize that you are already there. You're already it. The only thing to pray for really is to recognize that. That's the only prayer, really, according to the Course, is to recognize that prayer is not necessary. To recognize that forgiveness is a given, and there's no sin. We're all just learning the lessons that we need to return to our true function, which is to be the love that we truly are, and that we've always been. Let me see. I think that's about it for tonight. We've got, I think, one more section in this chapter, 2 more sections, 3 more sections. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Please feel free to leave a comment, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Adios.